Welcome to Cloud Talks, a series of conversations on decolonizing dance. Conversations with practitioners whom are based in the Netherlands. We bring you personal stories from our dance studio in Den Haag. Stories of dancing bodies reflecting on past experiences within dance institutions and looking deeper into their own personal and communal practices. Cloud Danslab is a studio space that exists for over 10 years, dedicated to research on body movement, facilitating residencies and classes. Connect with us on our website cloud@danslab.nl or our socials on Instagram and Facebook. Welcome, beautiful people, to the 4th edition of Cloud Talks in the dance studio. And today I have as guest with me Monique Duurvoort. Welcome, Monique.
Thank you.
To Cloud, to Den Haag. And very nice to have you here, of course. This is like my second home. And I've been here for so many years. It's been really a long history here. And also we've known each other for some years now, had many different conversations in different contexts. Very excited having you here with us today. And to talk about dance, decolonization, what it means to you, what it means to us, what it could mean to others as well. But maybe we can start first with a short introduction of you, who you are.
Yes, well, thank you for having me. So my name is Monique Duurvoort. I am from Amsterdam. That's where I was born a long time ago. I practically lived the majority of my life in dance. If I go very shortly, I did my very first ballet class at a local ballet school when I was 7. My mom just put me there because I was moving a lot. And then when I was 9, my ballet teacher advised my mom to let me audition to the dance academy in Amsterdam, and I got in. And then from the age of the first year is some kind of selection year, and that's based on 1 day per week. And then when I was 10, I was selected to do the whole to go through the academy, the whole program, and that was from 6 days per week training. So I was at the what's now called the Dutch National Ballet. In my time, it was called a little bit different because you had 2 different schools in Amsterdam that merged together eventually to what's now Dutch National Ballet School. And then I straight away went on, after finishing the academy, I went straight on to dance for 13 years with Dutch National Ballet. And after that, I first did certificate study arts and cultural management, because I was, when my time at Dutch National Ballet, I was also very interested in more the organizational stuff from these big arts organizations. So I was very active in the Workers' Council, I think you call it, ondernemingsraad, and also at the union. So I first did a study arts and cultural management at Erasmus University. At the same time, I was also starting to do some little things for myself in choreography. Because another thing, while I was, in the academy, from the age of 14, it was the first time that my mom allowed me to go out in the holiday, go to a club, because apparently I was very curious to that. But she brought me to the club and also came and get me with the car.
Wow.
Great.
Yes.
So I was from quite a young age also in the club scene. And during my time when I became a professional dancer, I also stayed in the club scene. So I was, was very, also got to know other dance styles, which was more before house came, like the hip hop scene, and then later on the house. And I always had this idea of trying something out with different dance styles, because for me they were very normal feeling in my body. And and then I tried out like a little choreography, and for some reason that became very, successful. And from that moment on, I got into choreography, and where I used different dance styles, really crossover. And that was actually the beginning of my choreography career. And later on, I started also trying to do other art forms in it and become more performative. And yeah.
Wow, I mean, this is already a really beautiful introduction, taking us into different chapters of your life,
Yeah,
basically.
yeah.
From childhood, starting to dance, a mother who really also saw you. Very beautiful. Also, to have a parent who sees you, as in like, okay, you have this urge, you have this desire, let's do something with it.
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
create the space for that, basically.
Yeah.
Which also already very beautifully explained how you have been moving, or literally moving physically with your body through dance in different spaces, right?
Yeah.
Both in schools, already at a very young age, where you were receiving a formal training.
Yes.
As I assume, in a way.
Yeah.
But then, of course, also a little bit later, because I think you were even younger when you already started going to the dance school, or?
Well, I was 7 when I just went to the local ballet school.
Yeah.
And then from basically the age of 9, I was trained professionally. So yeah.
Yeah. But then, okay, so going into club life at the age of 14. I mean, it's
14,
already
yeah.
going a bit faster into time, but coming there as a person who was also had a trained dance background, how was that for you?
Well, I think a very big influence was my father was I don't know what you call it now, but it was called at the time ethnomusicologist.
Wow,
So I have one sister. She's almost 2 years older than me. And we were really brought up from as long as I have memories with very different styles of music, going from like the background of both my mom and my dad are Surinamese. And they went from, say, Western classical into all different kinds of native Surinamese and Latin American music, rhythms. So I think we were already very used of listening to a very broad scale of music and sound. I think that for me that the music connects very much, whether it's in classical or any other style. That the music is really like for me a base. And the feeling of music is, it's very hard for me to separate music from dance. And I think that that's also the base why I really felt different kind of, music and sounds within my body. So for me, was both very natural, even though I can say ballet is not natural, you know. Ballet is, sculptured. So, but the feeling of, for instance, Western classical music, that for me was very natural and close for me also to hear and feel. So,
So already, because you are informed then also culturally, right, by your upbringing, by so many different rhythms, musical styles, but then also, of course, ways of relating with your body to those sounds.
Yeah.
Actually, already, and then it makes me curious to ask this question: how was it then to step into formal training at this age of 7?
Well, I think both or anyone from my family. I have to say, like, my family really consisted mostly of, like, of course, my mom and my dad. Well, not of course, because it's not all that, you know. I was lucky to have my parents, you know, around. And my sister and my grandmother from my father's side. So we were really like quite small group, but no one had something with ballet at all. So my mom really put me on the local ballet. Yeah, it could have been maybe another dance school, but it just happened to be ballet. But no one had something, oh yeah, maybe she can become a ballet dancer. That was really because of the teacher at the time advised my mom, because apparently she saw something. And yeah, so that whole ballet world, was kind of new. And but I also must say, you're so young at that age of what, well, 9 when I started to go to the academy. And so you're not at all like, very aware of, what that kind of life is about. That's what you do. That's where you go. You're not, very consciously, you're just going to school.
Yeah.
Just, a little bit other kind of school. Where the dance program is, of course, the base, and all the like normal school is, really made around the schedule that you have for, becoming a dancer or professional dancer. But, you're also not used to anything else. So that's just what you know, and that's just what it is.
Yeah.
And I think also, of course, I mean, when I was in the ballet schools a long time ago, I hope that it has kind of changed by now. But you're also straight away taught to relate, in a certain way in that world, in that specific world, where ballet is very rigid, very, very hierarchical.
Yeah.
So that's what you get taught. You have extreme, respect for, the teachers. You're not per se allowed to speak because you speak with your body. So, but that's what it is. So you don't know anything else, or you don't go question it at 9, or the questioning came way later.
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I mean, of course, like a development of any child or human being, basically going through these different stages, and then eventually into your teenage years, etc.
Yeah.
But already going to the club at the age of 14 is also, again, then an interesting space for me. I think it's an interesting dynamic to have both this formal education, going to a club where perhaps in clubs there's also hierarchy, obviously, but it works out in a very different way.
Yeah.
And how was it for you to experience, just in general, for you being dancing in a club at that young age as well already?
Well, I just, I think I cannot really say that I noticed, but for me, going to a club was also, I think especially, at the younger stage, was a very personal thing. I was not per se, of course, I went with my friend, one of my best friends, but I really went there to dance, not to, basically socialize.
Yeah.
Not at all. And I also really like to go, for instance, very early to the club, because then you had space.
Yes.
I could never extend it if people came within like, say, a meter.
Yeah.
Because it's really like connecting your body to the rhythm or music. So I was not very social in that kind of way, and it was really for me to connect in another way than how I knew from, the ballet. Also, with ballet, it's so extremely, it's very rigid. You're literally every day sculpting, your body to a specific aesthetic. And once you reach a certain point on that aesthetic, then you can go on to, trying to become more free in it. When you reach a certain level of a more technical level, so you feel, very comfortable in that, and then you start to, find your space and really go for it. Mm-hmm. But it takes very long to learn a certain base. And when I went to the clubs, you first go with the rhythm, and then you straight away you're taken by it. Mm. So it's much more, of course, it's much more free, but it's also like, I cannot really say it in a different way than, you're going in some kind of flow or a wave or sometimes even very close to a trance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was exactly thinking about this word myself as well.
Yeah.
Because so much of what you're describing about the club resonates so strongly with me as well, especially also the taking space. It's something that I get often very disturbed by. I mean, I love clubs. I know crowds are part of it, but when it gets too cramped, I'm like, where's my space?
Yeah.
But also as of course this indeed allowing the rhythm take over in a way your body.
Yeah.
At least this is how I would describe it, where I can really constantly find myself in a very unexpected space. I can't really plan it. I can't really organize it.
Yeah.
Also has to do so much with what the music has to offer in that moment.
Yeah.
Because if it doesn't, it doesn't.
Then night can be ruined.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
No, it's true.
Yeah. But it's beautiful to have both these dynamics already at a very young age present in your own body and to kind of develop an awareness of those different dynamics. Are there perhaps any other spaces where you felt that dance was already existing for you at a very young age?
Well, I mean, the schedule that you have, being in the academy is very, you feel a lot of hours, so there's not per se much time left to do unless you're on holiday, if the holiday time is there. And it's also that I cannot really say, because I was not per se very conscious of it. It was just something you did, you didn't question it. I think, getting a bit older, I think when my mom didn't have to, drive me to the club anymore, I know that my friends started to go more also to more other clubs where there were more, you had this club, I don't know if you know it, Caribbean, and a lot of, they had very nice music, but then they had these blocks also where there was this slow dancing, and I was just like, I don't want anyone near.
Okay,
so that's when I really did know that I had certain preferences for certain type of clubs, and that was really where the music, it was for the music, and very and it's of course very nice if you meet people from the club scene that and of course you consider them they are your friends, and it's also really nice when you get together in a vibe. But I also noticed that for me it's always been looking to going to the clubs was really for me to be looking to connect to music, and I guess losing yourself in a way, and for me I also never felt like the need for for instance drinking or using something extra to maybe make a feeling bigger. For me, I could really just be really all night.
You would get high on the dance. Basically.
So and other spaces. No, I cannot really. I think for me, a long time it has been the classical ballet, and especially when I was, already then dancing professionally at National Ballet, then I would really, if you had your performance, and then you would be finished around say 11, and then I would just change and straight away go on to the club.
Wow. Yeah.
So
and because you also described of course your father being an ethnomusicologist, so the house, was that a space where you would also dance a lot, like on family gatherings, parties?
Not so much, because even though like my from both my mom and my dad we have the Surinamese background, but my dad was my sister and me, I can really say we were basically raised by my mom. My dad was around in the house, but I can also really say that his first love was music, and the family came far later than that. And I remember him always being in his room. He also had a room upstairs, zolder, like
An attic room.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we were living on the second floor, and then you had the neighbor, and then you had, a few separate rooms. And he was basically always there, and he was always in, writing music. And yeah, so, and then, we sometimes ate together. Then we were there. And one thing which was also really a family event, like music-wise, was always the... at Easter, the Matthäus Passion, me and my sister, we were then allowed to go and play and bring all of our toys. We had Barbie dolls, whatever. Bring them to the front room, and we had like this long table, and we were allowed to play like under the table, but we had to be fully quiet, and we had to sit like, I think the Matthäus Passion is about 4 hours, and and we would just be there. And that would happen every Easter, And that was how I remember them being, with my dad. But besides that, we did not have a Surinamese upbringing. Well, not that you have a general Surinamese upbringing, but we did not have that at all. My dad, both my dad and my grandmother, so his mother, never spoke Surinamese. Only if my dad only spoke Surinamese if he was talking to someone and we were not allowed to hear what was being said. My mom, we very recently found out that her background was also Surinamese, but that's a whole like long story. My mom is now, she just turned 95 in June. And literally 2 days before her birthday, we found her biological black father.
Wow.
She was, so she was born 1928 in The Hague, but she was adopted straight away by white parents. Because and only later on she got to know a little bit about her biological, but she never knew her parents. She knew that her biological mother was Frisian, and from her dad we only knew that he was black man. He had to be because she was our skin color. And for a very long time there was this notion that it was African-American jazz musician, but it turns out to be something else. But that's a whole other story. And it's also quite, personal. Yeah, we quite know it very, very recently. Yeah. And but there has been something, almost life-changing because, she searched 95 years and she didn't know who her, and that's my grandfather, of course.
Yeah.
And
goosebumps.
Yeah. So, but we were brought up in the Surinamese church also, Evangelische Broedergemeente. But also there, we went there, but my sister and me, we didn't understand Surinamese. And there you know some of the traditions, and you are in that community, but because my mom never knew that she was, she was part of the community, but never knew that she was also Surinamese until literally, 1.5 months ago.
Wow.
So just coming back to the Surinamese background, how a big part of that, I cannot really say that, because we were not brought up with that kind of, many influences of that. We were really brought up for a big part by my mom, who did not know her background. So, so I don't know. I don't speak Surinamese. I've not been there yet, but that's yet again another story. But
Thank you so much for sharing this. Of course, it feels like a very personal space as well, of course, to share. And so many other questions come out of that from you sharing this personal, very personal things. And of course, feel free to answer or not to answer anything that I'm going to ask. But from what you were just sharing, I also hear very much a story of discovering, constantly discovering and connecting or reconnecting.
Yeah.
Right? And of course, knowing you in the field as well, in the dance and art field, I see that very strongly as well. And again, I think also in the time we live in now in general, there's a lot about that to say, about claiming that space for us of who we are, of that what has been erased from us.
Yeah.
So how did that in general inform your dance practice, or maybe a bit more specific, your choreographic art practice?
Yeah, I think, being literally grown up within, an art form like ballet, which to me, looking back now, is really like the epicenter. That's how I call it, the epicenter of Eurocentric aesthetic. Yeah,
Yeah.
Eurocentric aesthetic. Yeah, it's a bit difficult because I only started, I think, really for myself, trying to, maybe in a way, self-analyze what this upbringing, within that specific part of dance, what that did to me, and not per se in a bad way. It's not like all tragic, but I think about 7 or 8 years ago, I started to really reflecting on it and started to really question, and starting to ask some very difficult, questions. I can say my very first time that I think I've been always very aware of that it was a very specific area where I was residing in. So from already a very young age, I know when I was going over, also for this session, I was going over some memories that I have, and it's interesting. I found about a year ago my very first, literally from my very first year that I started going really to the academy. So that was from when we were going 6 days per week. So when I was 10, and I found my first rapport. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you say?
Report.
Report. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was all very. The first one I got in June, and it was really very, very good. And then I got it in June 81. I'm like 52 now.
Amazing.
But I got that one in June 81, and then the second report was at Christmas 81. So I was 10 years old, and there it says already, that I was working very well, but my feet might be a problem aesthetically, and it literally is written aesthetically be a problem. And I thought, looking back at it, it's so interesting. Like at that young age, you already, start to notice this, that there's being spoken of, your body as being, part of it is a problem within, that specific field of dance. So then I was 10, and I think at the age of 12 or 13, I remember also, because I got overall very good reports, and so I was a good and talented student. But I remember very well. I think I was 12. But anyway, I got asked to come to the office of the director of the school. And she told me, I remember this very well, and I think it's also so telling that I remember it very well, because you only went to the director if something important was happening. And I remember I went in my little white leotard with only your ballet gear on, because it was during I think other people were in a class, and then. She was sitting behind her desk, like a big desk, and I was just standing there. And she said she was, first of all saying that I was, really, really good student, so all very positive, but that they decided that from now on I was going to be trained to become a modern dancer, because the chances that I would get, would be able to become a classical dancer were, slim, and that had to do with my color. But at that moment, it was just like, okay. So it was not like I went there, crying, because it was just, that was it, So no, I don't remember it as something very traumatizing or something. But it was just vanzelfsprekend. I don't know, what is vanzelfsprekend?
Yeah, like it was actually the culture, I feel, in a way, right? I mean, wasn't it like for a lot of people there in the academy constantly having to hear, or like in the school to hear, like, okay, this works, this doesn't. Aesthetics constantly kept coming back for everyone. So everyone was used to this kind of critique.
Yeah.
But because of course, specifically the critique as a Black person within that institution.
Yeah, but it was also something that was, I understood, so it was not like I went there crying, and you just went on with doing your stuff. And I was really also, from that moment on, very focused on going, I was being trained to go to Nederlands Danstheater.
Yeah.
And then when the auditions came, that was really weird, because I was so, focused on, going into that direction. And then the auditions came, and then I did not get accepted at Nederlands Danstheater, but I did get in the Dutch National Ballet. And that was really, strange, because I never had this ambition to go into the classical. I mean,
Yeah, you had accepted already on the way that you were being trained as a modern dancer.
Yeah. So that was odd.
Wow.
Yeah, and then I also remember, one of the first things that a colleague, at National Ballet said, and very, very, meaning very well. But she advised me, maybe you should, you can wear a little skirt, because my butt was sticking out a little bit more than average. But it was all meant very well. But but it's also, I mean, ballet is the full sculpturing of in anything but a natural way of the body. There's very strict rules what you want it to look like and what we do not want. So
well, since we have arrived now also at that era, I mean, you already described some interesting things and experiences. I mean, interesting, problematic things that you've also experienced there. I mean, you what I find interesting is that you also described that in those moments in life, as you look back, you did not have a very strong a traumatic experience. You didn't experience it as such at that time.
No.
But now looking back at it, like how does the past change in this present right now for you?
Yeah.
How does the meaning of that past change?
Well, I think it's very, very interesting that all those incidents, or I remember very well, where I was standing and how I was standing, maybe towards, the person who I was, talking with. I know that picture very clear. So it did impact me in a way, but not at that moment. It was not like something positive or negative. It was just there. But I think it's very interesting. I mean, it must have had an impact. Otherwise, I would not remember it that well. And I also remember when I was 16, that was the only moment that I actually thought about quitting, because you already start to be a little bit more aware of, your surroundings. And I remember there was this picture somewhere on one of the departments of where we had our classes, and there was of Dance Theater of Harlem. So that was the only picture that I saw, non-white dancers. And also at that point, I didn't have very much with a classical. Not that I hated it, but I never saw me as a classical dancer, and that was the only time that I thought about quitting, and I discussed it also with my mom. And my mom advised me. She said, you go and finish your study, your school, but then you at least have your diploma. Then you can do whatever you want. I mean, she didn't force me, but she advised me in that way. Mm-hmm. So I did, and at that point, when I had my diploma and I went straight on to National Ballet, then that thing was, urge to quit was gone again. So, but you are aware in a certain way of what your surroundings are like, but in a way you only connect certain dots at a much later stage.
Yeah, very recognizable, totally.
Yeah. So, I'm trying to think if there's. I mean, I think due to certain experiences, I think the one where when color came, as bluntly as you can have it, was of course the very by now well-known story about the Swan Lake and painting the request of painting yourself light to fit in an aesthetic. And it was not,
at the National Ballet, when you were dancing there, they asked this actually from you.
I mean, already from the beginning, not only, just with basically all, you have certain types of repertoire. You have the real classicals, which is Swan Lake, Sleeping Beauty, and all the fairy tale. Then you have the neoclassical, and that's more Balanchine, Forsyth, Hans Maane, and then you have the new works that are being made. So you have these, and I remember always getting the request for the classical ballets and the neoclassical to paint myself lighter, and I have I never did it. So
you resisted basically.
Yeah.
And how would they?
But there's also a part where you have to pancake because of the light, and you're not supposed to be shiny. So there is part where you just put on stuff, and I had that request already, quite a few times. And then I think I was 3 years, longer. I was I don't know, but I was over 5 years in the company, and then it really came to a big confrontation, one of the Swan Lake performances, because we were already doing Swan Lake, and then Swan Lake has 4 acts, and Swan Lake is best known for its white acts, which are the swans. Mm-hmm. And you have so you have the start of the ballet, and then you have after the second act, second and fourth act are the white acts. After the second act is where the pause, the break is. And then it was during the break, so you're changing to go into the next act. And one of the ballet masters came in the dressing room and with, again, this request, to paint myself lighter, which I had many times. And I said no. And that was the only time that what had not happened before. It was that I got really into an argument in the middle of the performance, and for the first time, it was spoken out that if I refused to do it, that could be seen as work refusal, and that could be grounds to fire me, and that was my absolute, limit. So. I danced, I danced on that performance. And then the next day I filed an official complaint at the direction, at the board, at the ondernemingsraad. I did straight away everything because I wanted to have the company, whatever their standpoint would be, but I wanted them to speak it out. And I said, if this is your policy, fine. Yeah. But, be open about it because you're here standing in the center of multicultural Amsterdam.
Yeah.
you know, then be open about it. And that was a very interesting process, because I filed the complaint the next day, and literally the morning after I filed a complaint, I had a meeting with the board, with the artistic, because I think and everyone was very I think a bit stressed, because I think they were very scared that the word was going to come out.
Yeah.
And that was like a very big thing, but that was my first time that I really that was for me the limit.
Yeah, you spoke out, and did you continue still at the National Ballet for some time after that?
Yeah,
Or, okay.
I did, and they never asked me again, but I know that they have asked afterwards other
dancers as well.
Yeah.
The same question to
Yeah.
paint their skins lighter.
Yeah, and there's very many, there's many discussions going on within the ballet. There's often this, thing of, but there needs to be created a unity. If you have the swans, they all need to, or whatever, whatever, if you're a fairy or whether you are what kind of figure. Or for instance, Giselle's one of the ballets where you have the long white tutus. Also have the white acts, and it's a specific aesthetic, and and it's very it's a certain image that people will want to hang on to, you know, and
Yeah, indeed, what you said as well before, aesthetics, but also, this epicenter of what Western culture, white-dominated, Eurocentric perspectives of the world wants to be. I mean, I know that you have been speaking up about this in several contexts, and I definitely would recommend people also to read articles or to watch other episodes that have been made that goes a little bit deeper into this subject if people want to know more. But I also want to shift more towards your choreographic practice. I mean, these particular incidents, your history, experiencing dance in the world of classical ballet, or a field where whiteness is kind of being very much celebrated, but you being there as a black woman, I know that it has impacted you very much as an artist, as a person, of course. And when we were preparing as well for this talk today, you mentioned this notion of the domesticated artist. Mm-hmm. So I'm very curious to hear more about that. Like,
I don't know where I heard or read that those two words, but I remember when I read or heard them, I thought it was a very interesting expression, and this was already, I think, say around 8 or 10 years ago, when I started to really reflecting on, my upbringing in ballet, in a non-white body. I literally thought, well, I think that I maybe came close to being a, domesticated, artist. And I think it's a very interesting term, because domesticated basically means that, from an external, or how I see it, from an external position, you're trying to shape and mold something else to fit within, a context where you decide what you can do with it. You talk about animals, being domesticated, so they don't, attack you, and that, they're being your friend, you're a pal, and I mean, I think it's a very challenging expression, because it also, I think for me, it can mean that you're being, how you say, muted, you know? And I think interesting coming from the ballet, where you all are also, because I mean, ballet comes from an extreme history, you know? And again, the hierarchy is extreme. And so you're really taught to show respect in a very specific way. And it's brought on, you know, it's tradition, being taught and taught over. And already from very young, first of all, you're not supposed to question anything. If you want to reach that, because everything is in hierarchy. You're already one of the few lucky ones who is able to step into, you know, or into this world of the academy. And maybe if you work, you know, hard, and if you're gifted and talented enough, then maybe you have a little, you know, slight chance to maybe, you know, make it even higher into a company. And there it goes on and on. But it's very much based on that you take towards yourself everything that's being taught to you. You know, you don't question it. Mm-hmm. You don't go into discussion, because otherwise you will not. Then for sure you won't get there, where, you know, everyone has this idea is the highest, you know, what you know are able to reach.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of the whole fairy tale. And again, it can be very easily, you know, seen that, you know, I'm being only very critical of ballet. I think my biggest, critique on it is because I have not seen yet the world of ballet being part of the bigger world of dance, being separated from its from a notion of superiority.
Yeah.
And you see that also in the ballet technique is often the base of other dance techniques that you learn in academies. Again, as a technique, just as other dance forms also have techniques, it's very strong. I mean, if you know certain things of ballet technique, it can really help you, you know, because you're very aware of every part of your body. But I think there's many aspects to it, and it's quite hard to explain. But you know, other than, for instance, other art forms, dance is your instrument is your body, not an external thing like a violin or whatever, or a sculpture that you make on the outside. Mm-hmm. The body is the thing that voices whatever you want. You know, you or the person wants to voice through you. You know, if you're being a dancer, or whether you're a choreographer that also, you know, performs. And in ballet, you know, you cannot deny that its aesthetic is based on, first of all, of course, Eurocentric notion of beauty, which is normal because it is a European art form. But I have not seen it being able to disconnect from its from this Eurocentric notion of being superior to other. And if ballet could also just be seen as a dance form, just like anything else, I wouldn't have a problem with it, because I love ballet. I mean, I love classical music, But the friction is its connection to a feeling of being superior, and has to do with its roots, its connection to imperialism, and that you can literally see in the thing that's most to this day most attractive for a lot of people is like the crown and the tutu, and which I understand because that's what I liked, when I was small. But it also sends a whole other message, the whole thing about, also being like Disney, a princess. And I think it's very interesting to question what is it that you're looking at, and I think in ballet, an interesting thing is, for instance, what you often see with the big classical companies, like all around, when they open their season, it's a big thing, it's a big gala often, and it often starts with the introduction of the new season of the ballet, and the audience is of course in gala. And then, the curtain is closed, the orchestra starts, and the curtain goes open. And it starts with it's called the défilé. That's the opening of the season. It starts with the smallest of the kids of the first year of the academy. So the small and the most innocent. And they often don't, they only wear their leotard, and maybe the girl has, because there's only mostly it's boy girl, like there's also nothing in between there, but that's also another one of the discussions. And then it goes into the high, the one class higher, and they get, maybe a little bit longer skirt, and then you get to the highest class, and then maybe they have the little skirt of the academy, so you're not at the company yet, and they all walk forwards. And they bow, and they go to the side. You bow for your audience. So it's also this notion of like being very
in service of.
Yes, very much so. And then when the academy has passed in all these different levels, going higher and higher, then the lowest level of the company starts. So then you have the point shoes on, and the women. Wear their tutus, but nothing, plain, nothing else in the bun. And then you get to a higher level, and then maybe you get a little flower. Then you get to the higher level, say, because you have all these different ranks. And the higher you get, the more entourage comes, the more glitter. And then in the end come the soloist with the full, crown. And I think it's very, I understand that it's very attractive to the eye, but it's also very interesting to question what is it that I'm looking at. Yeah. Because it's at the beginning of the season you establish the way you are supposed to perceive this dance form as and often also in the audience are members of the royal family. Because that's where also, the whole connection with, het Koningshuis, I don't know.
Yeah, the royal family, yeah.
And another thing is also, of course, like if you look, I go in another direction now, but if you see how the structure is of the subsidy system, the way how the money and the means are divided, where the ballet gets the biggest, the art forms like ballet and opera and, Rijksmuseum, Concertgebouw, which in a way is not surprising because they are considered the pillars of, European culture.
Yeah.
But what happens with that when you start to question European culture is not only made up of those parts.
No, as we know, like, right, colonialism
Exactly.
was a constant process of looting and
Yeah.
literally like stealing also from knowledges
Yeah.
that were not European
Yeah.
only. I want to make this, I want to ask you maybe also, I mean, last big question. I feel that we can open up a whole conversation and talk for hours about it. But also, again, your specific choreographic artistic practice, right? It's informed by all these histories and also this notion of what hierarchy means and what white dance is to be considered, or and what then therefore not is not white dance.
Yeah.
And I know that in your own choreographic practice you are tapping into many different histories, many different traditions. So how does that take shape for you, and also why is it so important to work in the way that you do at this moment?
Well, I mean, part of it is that I've always been very aware of how, like, my background is very black and white. And I've always found it very interesting to see how my white side is, fully celebrated, and all the means are there to emphasize its rich history. As a human being, I have I want my black side to have that same kind of access to
Value, access.
yeah, and that's not there. So, and another thing is that I find it very in my work, I'm very much like to how you say think about, or how you say
In Dutch, you can say it in Dutch.
voorleggen, to present,
yeah.
to present. I think issues or that are like from real human beings, question real emotional states, or how how identity or perception of identity, or how you're being shaped by your surroundings, or basically stories that I would have liked to have seen, on the stages that I worked with, but I've never had that as I never saw that,
Yeah.
So you basically start to try to create it yourself, and I think I've been. I like now making more things on location. I think that it's more interesting. But of course, I literally grew up in the theater. So for a long time, I really almost demanded that I wanted to show my work there too, not because I think that the theater is the best place, but I want to have access to all the means that, and the money that I know is out there, and that can clearly is provided for anything that says anything about my white heritage. I want to have exactly the same thing, so I can, tell stories or that refer to anything from my non-white side, and it's not there.
Yeah.
Or it's very difficult to. You need to put yourself inside out to, to prove, that that's really also worth it. And the way how the money is divided, that's a subsidy system.
Yeah.
That keeps, the subsidy system is at the base that recreates, just the way how, how the arts are, how certain forms of art, or are valued more.
Yeah.
Are really, and you cannot be, I often get in a discussion like, but all dance forms are the same. It doesn't matter whether you come from whatever break dance or anything. But it's not.
No,
It's
it's not. Yeah, unfortunately.
We really see certain art forms as more superior as the other.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But the way in which you are bringing basically also different worlds, different realities, again, different traditions also together within, at least they exist within your own body, first
Yeah.
of all, right? But then it's also they're very present in your own artistic practice. Would you say that it is about bringing together both a black and white traditions, or is it moving beyond this kind of dichotomy or opposition almost of black and white?
Well, I don't think that I have been at this point yet able to move beyond that. But it's also because I think it's very interesting. As just for me personally,
Yeah.
I literally take of the inspiration that I have for make my own works is always about either the connection or the friction between my black and white heritage, because that's how I experience it.
Yeah.
And I think for me, as my person, there's so many interesting sides to that. So for me, it's an ongoing thing. I personally am interested in how those two, connect or crash
Yeah.
together. But I can also fully understand, people who say, you move beyond that. Of course, there's a whole lot more than, racial issues or something. But for me,
Yeah.
I think also because my upbringing has been, that has shaped me, and I just think it's very interesting to question or to reflect on what an impact that has been, because I literally, how I see it, reshaped my non-white body to fit in a Eurocentric aesthetic, Eurocentric perception of beauty. And for me, if you talk about decolonization and within dance, for me, it's mostly the question of what is beauty,
And yeah, unfortunately, especially ballet, for example, reproduces this, but not only ballet, right? I mean, so many other dance traditions as well reproduce this notion of the white body as the norm.
Yeah, and I'm always very surprised if, I've really had people who are very active, active and all, into activism on, the black voice or the, your black identity. And then when it comes to, for instance, an opening of a gala of the ballet, then suddenly it seems to just, evaporate, because, they're impressed, or almost, there's part of, it speaks very much to this idea of fairy tale, but also being wanted to be associated with a specific, specific world, and it's very much about to see and to be seen with.
Yeah.
And
it's status, literally. It is still
it
to
is
be
that,
functioning within that world. Yeah.
And I think that's also my problem that I have with, how you say, definitions of and that's also really just me personally, but, I don't see yourself as a queen or see yourself as a king, because for me, that's just straight away a reproduction of that same kind of thinking in hierarchy.
Yeah.
And,
no, but thank you so much for saying that. I totally feel you there. I mean, it's so common in so many different languages that we wouldn't even identify as necessarily colonial or necessarily white or Eurocentric, but still we reproduce it in to so many spaces, these gender binaries and hierarchy indeed. It's very, I mean, I would love to actually talk much more with you about all of these topics. Hierarchy is also a big topic for myself in my own practice, which I constantly have to question, because it is so omnipresent, and it is this notion, right, of superiority. Again, it's not only within race, but it's within anything that is out there. And it's not been like that for the longest history of mankind, but it has been for a certain history of people in this world. And colonialism, unfortunately, is had a huge impact on that. And yeah, I hope that you also feel that we tapped in many different ways into this topic of decolonizing dance, in the way in which we have also been creating space together to narrate our histories. I think that, first of all, is often forgotten, right? We're often forced to jump immediately into that what brings us status, that what we have already acquired, that what gives us a certain position or acknowledgement within society. But there are so many layers to that, right? Of what make us human, what make us artists as well. And maybe I just want to ask you a last question, and I want to ask you to maybe answer it in a short, cozy way. But where does dance live for you in your body right now?
Yeah, it lives here and here. It lives here.
So you can locate it into a space.
Within, and but it's everywhere. That sounds corny too, but it's very much, I think going like that. So because I cannot detach, from the way, how I also was taught in dance, very much from the head making the shape or the. But in the end, it's I think if you're really in the trance, and I wonder if you recognize it, if you, of course, then you're not thinking, oh, where do I feel it? But I think most of it is somewhere in the upper body. For me, somewhere here, and that just
spreads.
From there
it goes, it channels,
So.
No, I can relate to that, definitely. For me, it's very much in the heart and in the hara, right? In the space around the belly button. So for me as well, like when you say that, immediately something for me is like, that's from where it initiates, from where it starts to grow. So I think we have
but also the talking,
That's the thing, right? Like, look at us as dancers, artists, having this whole talk in words, but we love the best to express ourselves with our bodies through our dance. So I would definitely say keep an eye out on Monique Duurvoort and follow the work of Monique Duurvoort and see what she has been creating, and also look out for new work that she's going to create. And I want to just thank you so much for being here, for opening up, being so vulnerable. And I hope we will continue this conversation in many different other contexts, that you will also just continue this conversation with other people in different ways. I feel that we have a lot of work to do still, but staying close to ourselves, as you've also shared with your story, I think is very important.
I agree. I think that's the only way. I think especially if you reach a certain age, you know deep within you just
you know. So see you next time. Thank you so much for watching, and keep thinking, keep dreaming, keep dancing, keep moving. Please do check out our other episodes of Cloud Talks. Don't forget to check the links below this episode for more information on today's guest, and make sure to check out or subscribe to our socials. We would also love to hear your thoughts in the comments.